All right, everybody. Welcome to the 357th edition of the Holy Backboard podcast. I am Dustin here in rainy Rip City, and I got my man
Stage chilling live and direct, ready to talk about the first week of Blazers basketball and the first week of actual basketball that matters. So I'm ready to get into it. We both have busy schedules, so let's talk about these Blazers.
Yeah, a quick recap of the first week of Blazer basketball. The Blazers sitting at 1-3, losing on opening night 123 to 111 to the Los Angeles Clippers in a game that was not as close as that score may indicate. I believe the Blazers found themselves down by as many as 30 points in that third quarter. They lose on opening night to the Orlando Magic at home, 102-97. And then they are in the midst of a 3-game East Coast road trip, losing the first one to the Philadelphia 76ers, 126-98, where Philly just completely took a 6-point lead at halftime and just ran away with it in the second half. And Portland gets on the win column with a gritty 99-91 victory over the Toronto Raptors, which was a back and forth affair, but they found a way to get it done. And now you don't have to worry about when the next win is going to come because that schedule is difficult. The Blazers only have 4 players that started the roster, that were on the roster on opening night last year, that are currently on the roster this year. A lot of new faces in different places and in big roles. So it's not just like you're trying to replace the 10th, 11th, and 12th men on the bench. You've got a new starting point guard. You've got a new, basically from opening night, you have everybody new except for Jeremy Grant. 20% of your starting lineup is the same. 80% is different from opening night. That's very difficult to achieve. And when a lot of those players are still not able to legally drink, that means you got a young ass team and you are going to see things like we saw. And obviously we have been saying, you got to be patient. This team is going to take a bunch of lumps and bumps and bruises. But Sage, I will say, as we kick off this show, there's losing and then there's looking like an AAU team. And I think for far too much of those 16 quarters of first week basketball, the Blazers really looked like a discombobulated, disjointed basketball team. You had players running into each other in the paint being crowded as a subway in New York City, which we will get into. You have players not knowing how to set screens. You have a lot of ISO heavy basketball, minimal ball movement, very few players.
We're the worst team in assists currently.
Very few players willing to make the extra pass. And frankly, I think you have some players who don't really want to be here. And we will get into that as well. So I'm fine being 1-3. I could care less that we lost the first 3. And to be honest, I could care less that they won in Toronto. It's not about the wins and the losses. I will continue to harp on that. It's how the team is looking, how they are playing. Are they competitive? And are they building something? Are they building chemistry? Are they building continuity? We keep hearing this phrase from Chauncey Billups. We're going to win together. We're going to lose together. So we might as well be together. I would not define the first 4 games of this season as togetherness. There's not a lot of continuity, not a lot of, I would say, cohesion that we have seen from the 2023-2024 Trailblazers. Now, that doesn't mean it can't come, and there is a bit of leeway because of all of the newness that I touched on to start the episode. But in the Toronto game was a step in that right direction. We need to see those steps. We need to see less and less AAU, YMCA type of basketball and more, okay, this team is playing like a unit. They might just be outclassed on this night. So there is some leeway. We're 4 games into the season, but we do need to continue to see progress on that type and not on that style.
I have to argue with you, bud. I think that the Blazers there is cohesion. Malcolm Brogdon took so many shots and did so many ISO heavy things. But if you watch him, if he got in trouble, he passed it and got it right back. It seems like they want that to happen. So like I think that I think that the whole staff said Malcolm Brogdon is going to be the guy that kind of is our horse for this early part of the season. Even when Anfernee Simons was playing, he was still the leader in usage and ISO heavy trips. Like I remember us worrying that Anfernee was going to be the guy that ISO'd everything. It's Malcolm Brogdon's old ass trying to create. And it seems like his teammates are actually fine with it. Like they give him the ball. If they weren't happy with what he's doing, they wouldn't pass it right back to him so he can slowly ISO. So I for whatever reason, I think that Malcolm Brogdon ISO ball is kind of what Chauncey Billups wants. I know it's not what we want, and maybe it's so he can get traded in the future, but right now, like they're giving him the ball right back. He is like the leader in usage. He is the focal point of our offense right now. It's absolutely insane, but like if that was the word on high that we're going to get Malcolm Brogdon his time, they are certainly doing it.
I think one can be true, but also I don't think that represents continuity or cohesion though. Like I can see your point on that being the team's game plan. I still, with my eyes, what I've seen,
Oh, it's
have not
fucking
seen
atrocious to watch, but I think they're
but I'm not
succeeding in
seeing
doing.
a team that is, so to me, a team that shows cohesion. They're talking on defense, they're making rotations, they're not turning the ball over, silly passes. They know how to run a functional offense. Too many times I have seen this team. So for example, opening night against Orlando, Shaedon Sharpe has two beautiful pick and roll on the weak side. He just dumps it off to Deandre Ayton. Two quick buckets. Malcolm Brogdon is not even in the game. They completely go away from that, and so I think that's a representation of the coaching staff to not identify that and say, you need this is we're going to eat. We like Deandre against their bigs. We need to get him into the offense, especially after that rough early foul trouble outing against the Clippers, and they go away from it. You're seeing a lot of quick shooting. I mean, you look at that. There's a clip floating around on Reddit, and it's the Jeremy Grant ISO special where there's 16 seconds on the shot clock, and he's going 1-on-5. He has got it in his mind. He is shooting that basketball. I don't think anybody is calling for that, but I think the lack of cohesion, from my point of view, comes from there's a handful of players, Malcolm, Jeremy, and Matisse, who don't feel like they're completely bought in. And you're seeing a lot of hero ball. I'm just here to get mine, not making the extra pass. And maybe because Anfernee Simons is out, the Blazers don't really have any other options to do it, or they're not willing to maybe start a rookie at the small forward to replace Matisse. And we know there's not a lot of bigs ready-made at the 4 to just step in right now. So Portland could be at a position of weakness when it comes to addressing some of the selfish play. But I hope we see just more trust in one another, making the passes. Like, I think you're seeing that from the younger players. I think DA is actually doing a really good job of grabbing rebounds, kicking it out. Like, he could be one that could be forcing the action because he hasn't really been involved. But I saw him in that Clipper game, still down 30, blocking shots and starting a fast break. He set a personal high against the Raptors, pulling down 23 rebounds. He still seems to be bought in, and that is a huge thing that I'm going to be watching over the course of this season. That's been kind of a knock on him in Phoenix, but he still seems to be bought in regardless of how many touches he's getting. He's doing everything that the team needs, and I've been really pleased with how he's just able to man the glass and score, finish really well around the rim. Like, once I think they start to build some continuity, and that is something that does come with time, I think we're going to see more lob passes. I think hopefully we see him more in that free throw line extended area, like 10, 15 feet. Can he hit those jumpers to open up the floor a bit? But I've really enjoyed what I've seen from DA. I think with rebounding being such a weakness on this team, to have someone who can go out there and grab you 20 boards on any given night is just huge.
I think there's context to why he potentially struggles. Of course, there's foul trouble, but if he's an interior big, the interior should belong to him. We try and put Robert Williams in at the same time as him. That really ruins spacing. You put Matisse Thybulle in, who is such a non-factor as a shooter. The paint's even more crowded. You put Scoot Henderson, who I believe has only made 1 3-pointer this year, and he's not going to help spacing at all. I think that Scoot and Matisse and Robert Williams is all attaching to the fact that DA is not scoring as effectively as possible. It's just when there's 3 players that are just absolute non-factors, or even 4, we go in games where it's just 4 non-factor shooters. What's a smart team to do? They're going to clog the paint and make you force a bad shot over them. And of course, there's going to be times where we're making it. Like Toronto, we made shots, and that's why we won. Like, I think that spacing is going to be the reason that DA may or may not have good games. Like, if I think that every single player has ruined spacing on this team. Like, I just don't think that Chauncey Billups has expressed how important spacing concepts are. There's parts of the game where, like, even Tumani, who I know can shoot, was just chilling right next to a teammate. And then in a late clock situation, they only needed to send one. So I feel like in terms of DA's production, it's all going to be on, are we smart enough to space the floor enough for him to do it? Like, I bet you he and Scoot can run beautiful pick and roll action just off the pick and roll. And if we have proper spacing, it's going to work. But until we have more shooters surrounding our guys, it's just going to be a clogged up paint. And that's going to lead to fast breaks for the opposing team. Like, right now, I'd say we're bottom 5 defense, bottom 5 offense because of the lack of spacing. Like, it all goes down to spacing and how we cannot space the floor without any, like, I don't think we're confident right now. I think that right now we're just not confident in our shots.
Offense, we are 26th in offensive rating. Defense, we are 21st in defensive rating, according to Basketball Reference. I think there are a few ways that the coaching staff should look to enhance the spacing, because it looked like just an absolute sardine can in every game this year, where you can take a screen grab of any point in time and the opposition has 4 to 5 men.
Yeah, I did that. I did that in the Orlando game. I was like, this is bad space
in the paint. I mean, it's just, there's nowhere for the players to breathe. I think that is also a pretty big reason why Scoot Henderson is struggling to start the season, because he wants to get downhill, but you can't get downhill when everybody else is in the painted area. So back to some solutions. Jeremy Grant, for all of his quals, is a really good 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And especially off of the catch and shoot, he's got an incredibly quick release. I have not seen many sets where he is ready to be the recipient of a catch and shoot 3 to get him open. It seems like he is, a little bit closer to the paint than we would like him as well. I also think did
you watch the Toronto one?
Yeah.
Because I think that, I don't think they actually run plays. I think Scoot Henderson does what Scoot Henderson wants. I think in the Toronto game, there were times where he's got to the penetrated and kicked it out, but it was so few that I'm only remembering 2 or 3 open threes that he's gotten. I really don't think we run plays. I really think we just roll the ball out and go.
Yeah, and I think Matisse Thybulle cannot play rotation minutes in this league. Teams are going to dare him to beat them, even if he shoots 3 for 6, which is 50% incredible. Teams are going to live with that. They're saying, we want Matisse to shoot the basketball. We watched in that Orlando game, like, he's having trouble even setting screens. And why are you setting a screen with Matisse Thybulle? His defender is not going to. Matisse is not a threat to roll. He's not a threat to pop. You're basically just bringing an extra defender over to the ball handler. I think he needs to be removed completely from that rotation, and you have to get players who are going to spread the floor. And then also, lastly, I really think It may not be a 3-point extended, but what did we see from Scoot Henderson in that first summer league action? He got to the mid-range against any Houston defender, some good Houston defenders, and was just shooting with confidence. We finally saw that against Toronto. He did
Yeah.
one or two of those, but there needs to be some specific calls where he comes off a pick and roll. It doesn't have to necessarily be 3-point extended, but use your acceleration, use your burst, stop 15 feet extended, get the rhythm, and then you're going to be comfortable shooting the threes. Like whenever you played basketball growing up in the leagues, coaches would always say, don't warm up by shooting threes. Like start early, start by the paint, and get your rhythm, and then start slowly moving back out. And then your body is ready to shoot those threes. You're loosened up, you're ready to go. For Scoot, especially being like, it's not 1 for 20, but it feels like 1 for 20. He has only made 1 3 this year. Having that be your first, maybe 2 or 3 looks at the hoop, that's just not a success, a recipe for success for him. I would love to see him get to the mid range. That's where he needs to live. And then you can start looking at, okay, well, we've got Scoot hitting the mid range. We know Shaedon's a threat from deep. Jeremy's a threat from deep. If you can find a small forward, whether it's Tumani, get your ass out of the paint. I would even love to see some Chris Murray minutes. Spread the floor, because then you're going to let your big fella have more room to roam and operate. And Scoot Henderson's best asset right now is his ability to blow by a defender. Most of his buckets this year have been just off of dribble penetration when the lane is parted.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to unlock him, and that is obviously key for this season. So without Anfernee Simons, who is out 4 to 6 weeks with that thumb injury, the Blazers are going to have to find ways to open the floor up for their main people. And I don't think that is accomplished by keeping Jeremy closer to the rim and by playing Matisse Thybulle real NBA minutes.
I started seeing it in the Toronto game. Scoot would get the ball and just push before Deandre Ayton got to the, like, if Deandre was passing it in, he would just run and get like initial attack before the paint got closed up at all. I think that he might need to do that more often. Just if the center is passing you the ball, sprint up, and they're not going to be set because Deandre is all the way back there still running. I think that, man, it's a very tough thing to try, and I just don't think that we have the creativity offensively to like do anything but this ISO stuff. Like what reason Dame was so awesome was because he got into the paint easy, but for whatever reason he had spacing with worse players. Like, I guess it's the respect that he got, but like Scoot doesn't get any of the respect that
You
Dame
have to
gets.
respect Dame from 35 feet extended. I mean, so that just initially allows him to get a head full of steam downhill, and it's much harder to pack the paint when you've got an NBA athlete already with 3 or 4 steps of momentum, because then he's going to be able to do what he does. So, and that's why I'm talking about Scoot needing to get a little bit more into a rhythm. Even if you're only putting pressure on the defense, foul line extended, you're still getting into your spots. And then the 3-point shot will come. Frankly, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about Scoot, and I don't think people should be either. He's a 19-year-old point guard. So if you listen to last week's episode, we said he was in for a rough opening night. He had a pretty rough opening night until the fourth quarter. Like, it's going to happen. He's 19, playing in the most difficult position to play at in the NBA when it comes to being a first-year player. He has to make all of the decisions. He has all the playmaking responsibilities, all the ball handling responsibilities. Like, he is the head of the snake, and that's a lot to ask for a 19-year-old, regardless of how heralded he is. So these learning curve games, they're going to happen, and he's going to
There's going to
struggle.
be a game where it looks like he's the best point guard of a generation of point guard.
People have to, I think, just take a deep breath. I know people are like, oh my God, Brandon Miller's averaging 17 points per game, leading all rookies. Well, Brandon Miller does one thing, and that's let's shoot the basketball off of other people setting him up. Brandon Miller,
it's LaMelo setting him up. It's Terry Rozier setting him up.
Brandon Miller does not create for himself. There's context when it comes to looking at other NBA players. And if you want to make a comparison from last year's draft class, I was watching the Kings and the Lakers. They were raving about Keegan Murray. He's averaging, 15 and a half points, 7.5 rebounds, improving off of last year. and they're happy because that's what they need. But Keegan Murray in a vacuum is not, I think, a super prized player to have, because he lacks athleticism. Anfernee Davis completely erased 2 straight layup attempts from him. Like, he is a pick and pop big who's going to get you a few rebounds, but like I don't think he's ever
And
going
he
to
has
project.
Sabas and
Yeah, he's not
Fox
going to
setting him up.
project into a 25 point per game score, but they're happy with him. And if you look at Shaedon Sharpe, he has a little bit, he's self-creation, he can catch and shoot, he's now doing a little bit of playmaking, and he's stepped it up a bit. And Shaedon looked a little bit lost at times last year. It takes time for these young players. And I think if you're Scoot, just block out the noise, do what you do. It's an 82 game season, and just if you can do one thing better than the next on each consecutive game, just continue to build. It's like you're chopping a tree. Like, you don't chop a tree in one swift movement. It takes time after time after time. It takes a lot of repetition. It could be tedious, but a month from now, he can be looking back and saying, I am a completely different player than I am right now. And I think that's really important for fans, because I've still seen the joy from Scoot. You still see him chest bumping teammates, being positive. Da mentioned after the Clippers game that Scoot was still upbeat, telling the team to keep fighting even though they were down, big, and staying positive, because as the leader, one of the young leaders of this team, his body language and his attitude is going to rub off. And that's really important, that despite him having maybe one of the worst games of his basketball career, he was still ready to continue going. And I think that's what you get when you get Scoot.
So we are recording at 2:30 p.m. and the injury report just came out, and this is going to be important for the first game of the night. Jalen Duren is out. Information is king in NBA. Jalen Duren not being in that starting lineup against the Pistons gonna be huge, because they could either go Alec Burks as a starter, they could move Marvin Bagley into the starting rotation, or they could move the biggest bust in a recent while, James Wiseman, into the starting lineup. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in these games, see what the starting lineup is for the Detroit Pistons, because if JD was playing, my pick would be much different than what it will be.
Can we talk about my boo real quick though? Because I think Shaedon Sharpe has been awesome. He's been, I think, like, you look back at the last 10 games of last year, putting up basically 24, 6 and 4, 40% from 3 on high volume, and everyone's saying, oh, it's just the tanking Blazers. Like, let's not too much stock in it. Well, when Anfernee Simons went down, it was a bummer for Ant, but I was excited as a fan of Shaedon because he got to move into that starting shooting guard role, where I think that is going to be his future in the league. And you look at his numbers: 18 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting 35% from 3, 92% from the line. And he struggled last year at the line. I think he was hovering around 70%. And it's not just and we haven't really even seen a Shaedon highlight dunk so far this year. So he's not really getting a lot of opportunities. His teammates, again, a lot of new teammates, haven't found him yet. I know Scoot and Jeremy both missed him a couple of times earlier this year on the break, but he's getting a lot of his points.
Hustle.
I mean, you look at the opening night, just attacking the glass. You look at Orlando, first game after Anfernee was out. He was the guy that kept the game close, scoring from all 3 levels. But what I've been most impressive with has been that little side pick and roll that we talked about with Da. He had one with Robert Williams in the opener that led to a 2-handed finish by Time Lord. And the defense, I mean, just he uses.
Do you see him do 94 feet a few times a game?
Yeah, he has the athleticism to be dominant defensively, blocking Chris Boucher's turnaround fadeaway. Chris Boucher is a long man. And then just how high he soared to take away Grady Dick's layup attempt. I mean, he got over the top of the square on the backboard. If he continues on this trajectory, we are looking at a special player. And I know we're only in 1 week post Anfernee Simons, and there's probably 3 to 5 more weeks minimum to go. But I think the Blazers are going to have a big controversy problem, whatever you talk about, because I don't know what they do. Like Malcolm, Shaedon, Scoot, Anfernee, that's a pretty. We talked about the paint being
That's
crowded.
a 6 weeks. That's a 6 weeks from now problem that
I'm
we're.
already projecting that because Shaedon needs to be the guy. They need
But
to
do you
figure it
think
out.
that Malcolm's going to be here in 6 weeks? There could be a chance that he's just gone. Because
Well, they have to wait a certain amount of time to
oh yeah,
aggregate
that's very
him.
true. Isn't it December 15th?
That's when free agents can sign. I think it's 90 days after trade completion. So I'm I'm not completely sure. I just know if they wanted to trade him solo, they could, but if they want to add him in with other players, I think they have to wait a certain amount of time, definitely before the trade deadline. And you would have to think that he would be on the move. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you can get a first round pick for him. But it's difficult. So I was alive, but I wasn't really aware of the Blazers when I was 2 years old. But this Anfernee Shaedon situation is starting, and I've read a lot about this, is starting to remind me of Kiki Vandeweghe and Jerome Kersey in the late 80s. The Blazers traded a swarm of talents. You're talking about Fat Lever, Wayne Cooper, Calvin Nat, and they sent that to Denver, and they get Kiki Vandeweghe, who just basically did nothing but score the basketball. Fantastic at it, but did nothing but score the basketball. Well, they draft Jerome Kersey in 84, athletic but raw. He starts to refine his game, get a jump shot, and he keeps pushing and pushing and pushing for minutes. It wasn't until Kiki Vandeweghe got hurt, I believe in the 87 season, 87 or 88, that Kersey moved into that starting lineup, and he never relinquished that job. And ultimately, they moved Vandeweghe in 88 or 89 to the Knicks, and Jerome Kersey was basically the heart and soul of those dominant early 90s teams. This feels pretty similar because you've got Shaedon, who gives you a lot of different varieties of how he can impact the game. Anfernee is better at shooting the basketball and creating his own shot, but that's it. That's really what you're getting. And so if they're not willing to stagger minutes, if they're not willing to potentially make Anfernee a sixth man, defensively, it is going to be a struggle. I was listening to the Zach Lowe podcast with Nikias Duncan, and they were talking about just like little things they saw on opening night. I mean, they already called out the Anfernee, Shaedon, Scoot minutes were just dismal defensively. And so I don't know if that is the path forward for this team. I think you've got undersized shooting guard with
Are we talking long
Shaedon's,
term or short term here?
I don't, Sage, I don't know.
Because here's where I'm thinking.
That's why it's so, 1 second. That's why it's so difficult, because you have Anfernee under contract for 2 more seasons. So technically it could be a long-term fix or a long-term problem, but it could also be a short-term if you're starting to look at hindering development of what I think is probably right now the best player on the team in Shaedon.
Well, here's where I'm at. We're already dismal defensively.
Yeah.
So, like, even being worse doesn't really, like, when you're already a bottom 10 team, there's not much more you can fall. So where I'm thinking is, like, I remember us talking preseason about having good size everywhere. I'd much rather us just suck even worse defensively. If we can have the spacing of Anfernee plus Shaedon with Scoot, I think that's going to help development even more so. If development's the thing that we're going for, I think an open lane for Shaedon and Scoot to develop craft. The reason why I tweet so often Shaedon's finishing craft is amazing is because our spacing is so dog shit.
Did you see that finish over Embiid on the break? Just filthy.
But I think we sacrifice any defensive thing just for more spacing offensively, because we're already dog shit defensively anyway. Let's just be more and have spacing so Scoot can get his reps in, Shaedon can get his reps in, and we have an open floor. Like I am at the point where, yeah, Shaedon, we much prefer you at the 2, but you're going to have to play the 3 for some minutes, because we cannot afford to have Matisse Thybulle play any minutes with any of our guys. So for right this second, I'm on the stand of, yeah, we're going to be bad defensively. Let's at least be able to score because we're bad at both. Let's at least be good at one and then just be atrocious. Like, I was looking at it, and the Washington Wizards, like playing against them, it's like in baseball when you go in Coors Field because the altitude lifts so much. Let's just be the basketball version of Coors Field where everyone scores a lot against us, but we can score too, because I think the development of how we can get to the basket and score is going to be much more valuable with Shaedon's Scoot and Anfernee Simons on the floor than the little bit of pluses defensively if we have proper size, because we're just so bad in both areas. I want to be good at least one.
I hear you. I do think there needs to be some staggering of minutes
Sure, there definitely needs to be staggering, but
because
I
we've
see them starting
seen
together.
this year when Scoot is off ball, it's basically like Matisse Thybulle on the court.
Mm-hmm.
The defender is not respecting him. He's not moving without the ball, and we saw that from Shaedon in his rookie year too, just not knowing how to move without the ball. So for now, I think you need Scoot to have the ball in his hands to be effective and to grow in that development. So if Scoot is having the ball in his hands, that's why I want to see Anfernee off of the bench. Then Anfernee can come in and be the primary ball handler, or then Shaedon could be the primary ball handler. Like, I think they need to reduce Scoot's off ball minutes, because when Malcolm gets
They
the
just don't
ball,
respect him at all.
yeah, it's not good for his development. And when he and Malcolm play, it's Malcolm time. And I don't want to see that. I didn't sign up for the season to watch Malcolm Brogdon shoot 18 shots a game. You also have to look, and I think, I mean, I don't have a say in it, but I would be willing to give Scoot, Anfernee, and Shaedon extended minutes a chance if they find a different solution at the four. I just, Jeremy Grant's wanting to shoot the ball every time he touches it. Like, there's just only one basketball. There's only so many possessions. Can you sub out Jeremy and put Jabari in that unit? Jabari's going to hustle and not take up a lot of usage. You also want to make sure you're getting Shaedon the playmaking reps. Like, right now, it's really going to take a lot of patience. Everything is muddled and murky, and I really feel for the players, because I think roles are being shifted and they're not super well defined. And that's one thing that is directly correlated over to the regular working man, right? You're in an environment where you don't know what your role is, and it's completely changing.
Mm-hmm.
That's stressful, and you're not going to be the best version of yourself when you don't know what's expected of you at any given minute. So this is why it's also terrifying who we have as our head coach. And yeah, it does worry me. So I hope they figure it out, and really the trade deadline can't come soon enough, because I think they need to trim a little bit of the fat, and really say, okay, if Scoot, Shaedon, and Ant and DA, those four need to eat the most, those four eat the most. And then, Malcolm and JG, hope you have good luck in your next endeavors. But that's what it's, I think, going to be really through the new year, as the Blazers kind of figure out who they are, and maybe it's a cream rises to the crop situation. But wanting to pivot a bit, I signed up for League Pass because you do
Congratulations.
get to watch the games 3 days afterward. And Ari's been teething, and so he kept us up, and middle of the night, and I'm like, well, I'm up, and I have to watch him while he goes to sleep, because he's got his levy, and he's not old enough to be left alone with his levy. So want to make sure that he's comfortable and he stays asleep and gets his good sleep. So I'm like, I'm up. I have League Pass. So I watched the entire Pistons Heat opening night game. I've been tuning into other games. I wanted to ask you, what are your 5 League Pass teams? Like, you see that the schedule, like, I have to tune in to that game or watch it in archive form.
So how I watch games now is it's almost entirely based on what my DFS slate looks like and who's the value and who I have the most. But if I was to take the DFS out of it completely, I think the Pistons, because of Cade, Asar, and JD, have to be in there. The Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton, Benedict Mathurin, Miles Turner, and my boy Jarris Walker. I really love the Oklahoma City Thunder with all of those young guys. I love Chet. Shea is amazing. New Orleans pisses me off to no end. They are also a team that deals with a lack of spacing. So my two favorite teams dealing with an absurd lack of spacing pisses me off. And then I'm gonna have to go the Spurs because obviously Wemby's amazing and such a unique talent, but I have love for Devin Vassell. There's a lot of Spurs guys that we talked about on this podcast, like Keldon and Devin, obviously Wemby, but we didn't really talk about him that much because we didn't have a chance at him. But so I think those are my five: the Pacers, Pistons, Thunder, Pelicans, and Spurs.
I think I'm with you on 3 of the 5. Definitely Detroit. I love Jalen Duren. It still irritates me. We traded that 2025 Bucks pick for Jeremy Grant instead of flipping it to the Knicks to take Jalen Duren. I mean, he's going to be I think he's going to grow into a more souped up Bam Adebayo, and that's scary.
Bro,
Um,
so the first game of the Pistons game, I saw that Jalen Duren's prop for double doubles was like, if I put 100, I get 500. So I've just been betting Jalen Duren over double doubles for the last week. It's not even on DraftKings anymore because it's such a certainty that he's getting it. They just don't even put it. That's how crazy he is as a rebounder.
I am a big Asar Thompson fan. He is my dream starting small forward with this core, so I love watching him play. And then I really like Shaedon Ivey coming out of the draft, and it's been interesting watching him play because I don't know if he necessarily fits with that Pistons roster. And then
No.
it's been nice to see Cade Cunningham have a bounce back junior season in the NBA. So definitely Detroit, definitely Indiana. Was high on Benedict Mathurin. I love traditional point guards like Tyrese Halliburton, who kind of sets the table for everybody. And then, yeah, Jarris Walker, again, is my dream power forward with this core that we have. So, keeping tabs on Jarris, OKC as well. Like, I know they're the former Sonics, but like that era has kind of ended for me. And now it's like a new era. Shea Gilgeous is probably one of my favorite non-Blazers.
They're
Chet's
entertaining as
been
hell.
Chet's been first team all defense already type of talent. So it's going to be interesting to see how he continues to develop. Can he stay healthy? They've got so much depth of so many, rookies. They've got like Hassan Wallace and Ujman Jang from the past 2 lottery classes that are fighting for minutes. Both Jalen Williams are really talented, and then Giddy is, I think, a unique talent in this league that not many teams have. So like it'd be interesting to see how type of player like that could fit in with Portland when you're looking at upcoming draft classes. OKC is kind of setting the blueprint. They've got such a young, talented, fun bunch. And then it really gets a little tough. Like those are the 3 that I'm watching. And I think they may rotate a bit, but right now Orlando, I really like their 2 bigs with Banchero and Wagner. And we saw them up close and personal on opening night. Older Wagner had a great game. We've been big Wendell Carter Jr. fans for a while. Jalen Suggs is a menace
Absolutely.
defensively, but he can't shoot the ball to save anything.
I
And
think
then
this is the you cannot be singularly focused at one thing anymore in this NBA. There's no more Amos, and there's no more Kyle Korvers, and there's no more strictly defense guys. You have to provide something other than that, and I don't think Jalen Suggs does that.
And then I think my last team is the Denver Nuggets. I know they're on national TV some, but not as much as they should. I used to really dislike Denver, but like being a smaller market and seeing the disrespect they get even after just destroying the competition, I feel that in my bones as a Blazer fan. I love watching the Joker. I think he's probably I think he's already, you could say he's already top 10 all time, and I wouldn't bat an eye. He's that dominant. He's so fun to watch, so unselfish. Jamal Murray is a big bucket getter, and it'd be interesting to see how they defend their crown. And then once Houston finally starts playing, this is a bonus. Once Houston starts finally playing the Tari Easons and the Cam Whitmores and the Amen Thompsons, I will definitely tune into those games because again, those are all prospects that we really spent a lot of time researching, and it's always fun to see your research to see if it pays off. Were you right? Were you wrong? How are they developing? And again, another small forward that I would love to have, Tari Eason. So Joe Cronin, if you're listening, we're giving you some banger advice. So
I mean, even the Nuggets, like I know you have a special affinity for Peyton Watson as well. So there's young dudes even on these championship quality teams that are very interesting. Like Peyton never had a chance at UCLA, but now without Bruce Brown on that roster, he actually has a chance to be something and show why he was such a high value uh high schooler. Like now it's his time to shine, especially because he just has 20 minutes to play with now. So like even those championship guys have interesting players to watch, and you know. But yes, I know that you have a secondary thing that you're trying to talk about with these teams.
You already answered it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my question was, what's your criteria for a league pass team?
Young. I want to see young dudes that I've scouted.
Yeah,
Um,
young player. It's for me, it's the young talent. I'm also like, I don't really want to watch Paul George and Jimmy Butler. I've seen you for 10 plus years. Like I've been there, done that. Like, so like those teams are completely off my radar. I don't want to see any treadmill squads. Chicago, Kick Rocks, Toronto. No. It's really the young teams and then the generational talent for me, which is Nikola Jokic. Um,
and then
those
obviously for me, it's DFS is the number one thing. Like today, Atlanta's going against Washington. I know before I leave on my trip back to Medford, I'm gonna watch some of that game because Washington's just so bad. And you know, Trae Young injured himself at a trampoline park, so there's gonna be a lot more value. So, but there's a lot of fun teams this year. So league pass, you owning league pass is a very good thing.
All right, let's get into the upcoming week. You are +1 on the predictions after picking a Blazer victory in Toronto. We have 3 games we are going to discuss. Tonight's game in Detroit, concluding a 3-game Eastern Conference road trip. And then Friday, Sunday, home and home, one of them being the in-season tournament. But same opponent, the Memphis Grizzlies. Real quick before we get into that, Sage, do you care about the in-season tournament? Does it
Not
matter
at
to
all.
you?
No.
Yeah. Um,
It's
I
new.
don't.
Why would I have any feelings towards it? We haven't seen it go into fruition yet.
As long as it keeps the players playing and stop being benched, sure, I sign me up for it. I think everything about it feels a little gaudy, and the courts are going to be a little bit they're going to be a colossal eyesore. The city edition uniforms are being rolled out, and I think it's been the worst of the 6-year iteration across the league. I mentioned I was going to do a breakdown of my favorites, and they all kind of blew chunks. So that could be a bit of a nightmare. I'm thankful I don't watch the Blazers broadcast because they're one of the only teams that superimposes digital ads onto the screen. So I can only imagine adding ads onto a bright red court. Um, not for me, but we'll see if the Blazers can. But I'm more here to see how they perform rather than how they look. Let's talk about the Detroit Pistons, a team we both have seen quite a bit of. You mentioned Jalen Duren not being in the game. I really want to see how Cade Cunningham and Scoot Henderson, 2 players very highly touted from early on. How does that matchup look like? Obviously, Cade has the size, Scoot has the speed, but Cade, I think this year has really came back with a nice looking long range shot.
Mm-hmm. He always had it. It's just he feels more. He always had the 3-point shot, even at Oklahoma State. He had it. It was just he would much rather drive it than shoot it. Like I think that rookie Cade, or not rookie, but freshman Cade was like one of the better freshman shooters ever. So he had it. It's just that he prefers the mid-range game, and he's really awesome at it. I do think both teams struggle offensively and defensively. I think Jalen Duren being out is hugely important for us. Like I think DA is going to dominate if it's Beef Stew, Marvin Bagley, or
Because
Wise.
Detroit was going big. They were starting Isaiah Stewart
Yeah,
and
they were going the
Jalen
jumbo
Duren, which muddled up uh,
spacing.
their
Yeah,
spacing a bit too.
yeah.
So Alec Burks has been giving him really good minutes off of the
Mm-hmm.
bench. I would anticipate he moves into the starting lineup and that they put Stewart
At 5.
in at the 5, and they kind of play a little bit of a normal traditional basketball, but
It's Monty
um,
though. You got to think though. He loves that big
he does.
lineup. But I think that is the best layout for them is having Alec Burks move into the starting lineup and they going sort of small.
If they go big though, Jeremy Grant has to have a big game because he has to take advantage of Isaiah Stewart on the perimeter.
Yeah.
But if they go small, then I really think this could be a really good game for Deandre Ayton.
Yeah, I definitely would. I think Shaedon's going to have a good one as well. He just scores at such an efficient clip. One thing I would love to see him. He gets 2 assists a game. I would love to boost that up. He is one of the few willing passers on this team. I would love to see him get more assists and more rebounds. Like right now, he's kind of just a scorer and rebounder. I think that he's more skilled than that. So I would love to see him get more production. Right now, he's getting a statistic of 0.8 statistics every minute on the court. I would love to see that get a point per minute
I would love
statistically.
to see some Rob Williams, Shaedon Sharpe minutes together. I think you could really exploit the defense with Rob catching the ball in the paint, maybe just below the free throw line, and letting him make a decision with it. Shaedon is a fantastic off-ball cutter. Obviously, Rob didn't play against Toronto. They're resting him on back-to-back.
He's off the injury
Yeah, there are
report.
no back-to-backs this week, so he should be a full go these 3 games. So that's what I would like to see. Take advantage. I would love to see Jabari and Rob get extended run as well. Jabari, smart basketball player, cuts to the floor, cuts the hoop incredibly well. I just think Detroit's a little bit better team right now, Jalen Duren or not.
I think the Blazers win because Duren's out.
I've got Detroit. Then up comes the 0-4 Memphis Grizzlies. They are one of the few defeated teams left standing in the NBA. Talk about battered and bruised.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Ja Morant is still serving his 25-game suspension. Steven Adams is out for the season. Brandon Clark potentially out for the season as well with an Achilles injury. Their starting lineup in their last game against the Dallas Mavericks was Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane in the backcourt. Third-year players Zaire Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Xavier Tillman. So they go pretty small up front, and their bench just is nothing that I would recommend looking at. Like you're gonna
Derrick Rose playing 20 plus.
I mean, you've got David Roddy getting 30 minutes, John Conchar getting 20. I mean, they
Luke
just got
Kennard's off the injury report.
Yeah, it's I mean, I would worry about Luke Kennard. He always seems to give us fits, but I think Portland splits one of the two. I don't think
That's where I'm at as well.
Portland's not a good enough team right now where I'm like, yeah, they've got 2 victories, but you have to feel Taylor Jenkins is an elite coach. Memphis is going to be hungry for a victory, and I don't think they get their first victory tonight in Utah. So they could be coming into Portland with an 0-4, 0-5 record, and that's never a good sign. I mean, it's like a wounded animal. They're going to do whatever it takes to survive and fight and just really scratch and claw, no pun intended, with the Memphis Grizzlies. But they've always been a gritty team, and it's also really tough to play your first game off of a road trip, especially when you're looking at players like Tumani and Scoot in that starting lineup, where this is their first return road trip. How are they going to respond? It's a lot of firsts will take place this season.
I want to see Scoot versus Marcus Smart.
And
like that backcourt is full of good defenders. What's that?
And I want to see Shaedon versus Desmond Bane.
I think Desmond Bane might be my dream small forward for this team.
Yeah.
He's fucking strong.
I think this is a game where you really got to take Tease out. And even though we don't love Malcolm minutes as much, if they're going to play,
Malcolm minutes is so much better than Matisse minutes for me.
If they play Zaire Williams, I mean, he's getting 33 minutes. You roll out that Malcolm, Shaedon, Scoot lineup, and whoever
is Zaire going to dominate Malcolm Brogdon? Hell no.
Whoever Zaire is guarding, you need to make that young player play defense, get into foul trouble. Basically stay away from anybody not named Jaren Jackson Jr.
I think that DA is going to get him into foul trouble in the game.
I meant more
he's
like
a foul monster.
You have to be aware of where he's at on the court.
Oh, absolutely. But if he gets into 3 fouls in the first half, DA is going to dominate that game. Xavier tries
Yeah,
very, very
they
hard,
really need
but
to.
he doesn't have the size.
And so again, I would anticipate they put Jaren it on Jeremy, but also
Yes,
let him
and then he
roam.
would help off
Yeah.
for any.
So if Portland decides to ISO Jeremy on Jaren, it's going to be a long game for Portland. I think they really need to work it into Deandre, spread the floor, and the key will be hitting open shots. Can you open the floor up for your playmakers? But I have them splitting, going 1 and 2 in the week. You have them splitting, going 2 and 1 in the week. Sage, let's wrap this one up. Let our listeners know where they can find us.
We are available on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere where you get your podcast. We are there. We are available fully on YouTube. And our account is Holy Backboard. We are on TikTok. You can look it up. The clips for the show. It's Desage HB on TikTok, and then we post all of the clips on IG as well. So thank you all for listening. We will be back soon, and peace out. All right, man. I'm gonna just edit this very quickly and then post and then put it on YouTube. Then I can clip it.
Perfect. Have a
All right,
safe flight,
later.
bud.
Peace.
Bye.